We're really grateful to have Dr. Ramirez here with us today. He has nearly 20 years of experience working in and leading healthcare operations, from providing bedside patient care to developing national public health policy. He is a graduate of the U.S. Army Advanced Leadership Course and the UC Berkeley Center for Health Leadership Fellowship Program. He incorporates his experience as a critical care nurse, EMT, health operations manager, strategy and operations consultant, and public health research scientist to overcome complex health system challenges. He is certified by the American Society for Quality as a Black Belt in Lean Six Sigma, and is certified as a Scrum Master through the Scrum Alliance. He completed a Doctor of Public Health at Johns Hopkins University, where he received training to identify, synthesize, and apply evidence-based public health research and theory from a broad range of disciplines and health-related data sources for problem solving to advance programs, policies, and systems promoting population health. I'm now going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Dr. Ramirez.
Hi, thank you so much, Aya. Quick sound test. Can you hear me okay?
So you can hear me
Excellent. Great. So can you go ahead and enable me to share my screen? There we go. All right, well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And we are actually going to begin tonight's presentation on how consulting is characterized in pop culture, and then we're going to demystify it. So can you see my screen okay? Excellent.
And then we arrived.
So who's the student? He's a consultant.
Good morning, comrades. My job is to observe, to streamline, to improve. For those who work remotely, you have 1 hour to get here or you'll be terminated.
He's firing Ian. Says he doesn't like the way he smells.
Bow your heads and pray for him.
How are you enjoying the gaming industry? How many of these patrons do you think we could find? I think I could find 4 and you could do them running through. Excuse me? He's not who he pretends to be. I won't be here forever. I'm only the consultant.
All right, so a bit dramatized, I would have to admit, but we're going to go ahead and demystify how the general public perceives this and what it's really like to be a consultant. So I'm happy to be presenting tonight on this presentation titled Unlocking Your Potential and Exploring the World of Consulting. One disclaimer I want to share up front that you're going to hear me mention some Ivy League universities and some top consulting firms that are known worldwide. And I do understand this can sound very overwhelming to somebody who is in their undergraduate program, but I want to just emphasize, and if you know this already, I can remind you, I graduated from the same program at Cal State Long Beach. And then I went on to get my master's, and I leveraged that to get into the world of consulting. So if it seems out of reach at first, I promise you, just keep with it. If you set your mind to it, you can do this. And it is an amazing journey. I do recommend it to everyone, but it is not for the faint of heart. So let's get into it. So we're going to cover a few different items. So in this discussion, we'll be going over the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI test. I'll go over explaining types of consultants, explore various consulting companies, explore the perks and challenges of consulting, and explore levels of consulting and where to begin. Now, let's begin with the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, which is a personality assessment tool. It was developed in the early 20th century. Myers-Briggs is based on the theory that individuals have different psychological preferences in the way that they perceive the world, make decisions, and interact with others. The Myers-Briggs is used in various settings such as career counseling, team building, personal development, and it is widely used in consulting. It is a self-report questionnaire that consists of 93 questions that are designed to measure 4 pairs of preferences. The first pair is extroversion versus introversion, which refers to whether an individual prefers to focus on the outer world of people and things, or extroversion, which is where, well, that would be extroversion. And that's compared to introversion, where persons would rather focus on the inner world of ideas and reflections. The second pair is sensing versus intuition, which refers to whether an individual prefers to rely on their 5 senses and focus on practical details, and that would be sensing. And this is compared to intuition, where persons rely more on patterns, connections, and possibilities. The third pair is thinking versus feeling. Thinking refers to whether an individual prefers to make decisions based on more objective logic and analysis. And that's compared to feeling, which is based on decisions on more of personal values and more subjective considerations. And the final pair is judging versus perceiving, which this refers to whether an individual prefers to approach life in a planned, organized, and decisive way. So that's judging. And that's compared to perceiving, which is approaching life in more of a flexible, spontaneous, and adaptable way. So each of these pairs results in one of 16 possible personality types, which are represented by a 4-letter code, for example, ESTJ or INFP. The Myers-Briggs does not measure intelligence or aptitude or mental health, but rather personality preferences that are relatively consistent over time. It's not a perfect tool. It's largely criticized for its validity and reliability and lack of scientific evidence. However, many people do find the MBTI to be a useful framework for understanding both their personal perspectives and those of others. And it's a very helpful tool to improve communication and relationships, as well as career choices. And I've certainly benefited from this I've been to 3 different consulting programs, and each one has had a personality type test, 2 of which use the MBTI. So if you were able to take the personality test that was shared earlier, please feel free to post your personality code in the chat if you feel you're okay with that. I tend to personally evenly split between these 16 personality types. I usually split between the very lower left and the lower right-hand corners of the chart, which includes ESTJ and ENTJ. And these represent both the personality of a supervisor and executive. This also means that using myself as an example, I set strict boundaries. I take personal responsibility very seriously. I am intensely focused on achieving results, and I am quick to identify inefficient systems and practices. And that's kind of how these personalities are characterized, at least for the ESTJ and ENTJ. So these traits tend to, at least for those 2, tend to perform very well in consulting. And I would say that it's because of their underlying leadership qualities, and even more so for their results-driven personalities, which in the trailer clip that we just watched, that kind of results-driven personality is really taken to the extreme. But I want to preface all of this before we go further in saying, I've worked with personality types of all kinds. So all over the map here of the 16 different traits or overall personalities. And I've seen everyone perform remarkably well. And here's one other thing I have to say about this. So I think at the end of the day, despite how different that our personalities might be, it really does come down to how can we best leverage our talents and not allow our weaknesses to become distractions. So I participated in one management consulting training program where we were teamed up in teams of 4, and the program specifically paired us with persons that were as different as possible in personality. So it sounds kind of cruel at the end of the day, a little bit of a social experiment, but it was really seeing how do we get along. We're definitely, we don't approach problems the same way, but at the end of the day, we have to make this work. And I can say walking away from that experience, it benefited me to learn from persons who are a little bit more spontaneous, a little bit more comfortable taking time with ideas. For me, I'm very like rigid with timelines, and that works in some places, but it's not the best in every project. So whatever your personality is, I try to identify what are the strengths and potentially the limitations. And I think we're all better off for knowing that about ourselves, and then having conversations with others about how we work well together. As a matter of fact, when I do have new working relationships, I will ask people if they know their MBTI score, and then I'll share mine, and then we'll kind of talk about what works well for each of us. So the Myers-Briggs is useful to understand team performance, and I actually have a fun video on the next slide to show us an example of good teamwork. So when personalities do come together in a nice, successful consulting project, the deliverable is amazing, and it's just really nice to see everyone pulling together to deliver an amazing product.
We are stronger when we work together. A message from the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees.
All right. Now, there are many types of consultants, including management consultants who provide strategic advice to organizations to help them improve their performance and achieve their goals. They work on issues such as organizational design, operational efficiency, and business strategy. Then we have IT consultants who provide technology-related advice to organizations to help them improve their IT systems and infrastructure. They work on issues such as software implementation, cybersecurity, and data management. Next on the list, we have financial consultants who provide advice to organizations on financial issues, such as investments, mergers and acquisitions, and risk management. Then there are marketing consultants who provide advice to organizations on marketing-related issues, such as brand management, advertising, and market research. And of course, we have healthcare consultants who provide advice to healthcare organizations on issues such as healthcare management, policy, and technology. Now, I've done consulting in each of these areas. I'd have to say marketing was the most fun. And I'll share this quick fun fact. I actually got to meet Zendaya at one of our consulting parties. She was sponsoring one of our events, and it was super cool. So that's tell you more if you catch me on the sideline. But there are even more areas in the world of consulting, and I won't go into detail for these, but they do include HR consultants, environmental consultants, legal consultants, education, and social media consultants. And you'll be surprised that anything and everything involves consulting. So at the end of the day, consultants are professionals who are simply hired by organizations to provide expert advice on specific areas of their business or operations. And sometimes these consultants are hired as full-time employees within the organization. These persons are known as internal consultants, or they work for a consulting firm who contracts with an organization to provide them with outside consulting expertise. And these consultants are known as external consultants. So please keep in mind that many healthcare organizations, including Kaiser Permanente and Memorial, have internal consultants. They're hired full-time. They work in-house to solve many of the on-site issues on a day-to-day basis. They work in health IT, marketing, quality improvement, many facets of healthcare. So moving on. On this slide, we have the top global consulting firms for external consultants, beginning with what is often referred to as the top 4, which include McKinsey & Company, Deloitte, Boston Consulting Group, and Bain & Company. Now, the world of consulting is highly competitive, with many firms competing for clients across a range of industries. And among the top consulting firms is McKinsey & Company, and its name certainly stands out in any consulting circle. So this firm has a long history of providing strategic and management consulting services to clients around the world. They have an amazing reputation for excellence and a track record of very successful engagements. McKinsey is considered one of the best consulting firms in business. And the last I checked, they actually hold the overall lion's share of healthcare consulting contracts in the US. So this is the premier healthcare consulting firm. Now, I will mention that McKinsey was my first experience working in consulting. I was a graduate student in my master's program at Berkeley, and I competed for a management consulting training program, and it was in partnership with McKinsey. So I was selected in a group of 50 students to work on a McKinsey consulting project with real-world business clients. And we did this for about over a year. So I learned what was called the McKinsey consulting method, and they have a specific kind of approach to consulting. And it's really how you work with executives and carry out high stakes deliverables. Now, one cool thing, I got to work in the McKinsey office. And if you don't know, this is a high rise in San Francisco that overlooks the Bay Area. One of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen was being able to have lunch there, kickoff parties, and overlook the entire Bay Area, including the Golden Gate Bridge. All right, so moving on, another major player in the world of consulting is Deloitte. And this firm is certainly a global leader in professional services, and they tend to focus on financial audit services, tax, as well as general consulting services. So they do have their hands in just about every area of consulting. Deloitte's consulting practice is highly regarded for its expertise in all ranges of areas, from strategy and operations to technology and human capital. I will mention I was a strategy and operations consultant, otherwise known as a S&O consultant with Deloitte, and I worked in the area of technology services. Moving on in the list, we have the Boston Consulting Group, or BCG for short. They are also world-renowned for the work that they complete in strategy, corporate development, and operations. And the fourth company on the list is Bain & Company, certainly another top consulting firm, and they have a strong reputation for solving complex business problems. So those are your top 4, but there are also the top 10 is very popular. And I won't go into detail for these, but they do include Accenture. You'll hear their name a lot. Ernst & Young, otherwise known as EY. There's KPMG Advisory, Oliver Wyman, PwC Consulting, and last on the list is Strategy & So, of course, there are many more consulting firms, less general, they might be more specialized, particularly within the field of healthcare. And we do have a couple of videos to show us a little bit more about these firms, beginning with McKinsey & Company.
This is a door. You're smart. You knew that. Why are we showing you this? This isn't just any door. In fact, there are many doors for many different people. And from the front, they all look pretty much the same. What makes them different isn't the wood or the color or the size. What makes them different is the opportunities they lead to. Some lead to fame, but it's not about that, is it? For others, it's all about the money. Others lead to not very much at all. And this one here is ours. Open it. Take a peek. This door, our door, leads to an incredibly rich experience. An experience you can't get anywhere else. At McKinsey, the work you do will be exciting and stimulating. Extraordinary work, not for the faint-hearted. You will team with exceptional clients to take on some of the world's toughest challenges. Challenges such as delivering clean technology, leveraging big data, uncovering untapped markets, or harnessing the power of social media. With these challenges and our support, you will grow like never before. And not just at work, because we know that for you to really enjoy your career, you need the flexibility to enjoy the other things in your life. We will strengthen the skills you have and help you discover the talent you never even knew you had. And you won't be doing it alone. We will be with you every step of the way, gaining new insights together. building knowledge together, making change happen together. Because as you thrive, McKinsey thrive. And together, we have the power to fundamentally change our clients' performance using our scale, our scope, and our knowledge to address issues that no one else can. So, take the step. Shape your future. McKinsey and Company.
All right, and here we have a welcome video for Deloitte, which is very near and dear to me because it played such a critical role in my growth as a business and healthcare professional. So let's go ahead and watch their video.
We are the one firm.
Where a laborer dared to dream. The one firm, founded on fervor and firsts.
Cultivated by leaders and legacies.
The one firm.
That recognized innovation before it became the new black.
This is where Deloitte Research, I think we really do a good job.
Deloitte, we don't just want to solve any ordinary problem that a competitor could easily tackle. We want to solve the most pressing issues facing our clients and our communities.
The one firm.
That values courage and how you think.
As much as your credentials and what you know.
This is why courage is so critical, because the future belongs to the bold, to the organizations, to the nations that will harness the power to participate.
Where bold ideas become blueprints for action.
Where entrepreneurs are born and grow.
We are best managed. And fast 50.
We are experienced and trusted. Also passionate and bold.
The one firm.
Where disruption is encouraged and desks are optional.
Et puis, il y a l'espace, l'escalier et les bureaux dégagés.
Nous voulions absolument fournir à nos gens un espace où ils pouvaient être créatifs.
Where social is a medium and a mandate.
Where we are united by our differences.
And never divided by them.
Where you'll help build millions of futures.
And better your own.
It's so important for any organization. It's something we hold very true at Deloitte. You know, we are all very fortunate in our firm in terms of, you know, the lives we lead and what we do for a living. And we need to give back to the communities and provide that living.
Because of the one firm, our bottom line is our people. And our people change the world.
We know our people are our greatest asset. We take pride in building leaders that truly make a difference in the world.
At a time of unbounded complexity.
At a time where our value lies in our voice.
In a world where you can be anywhere and do anything at any moment.
You lead at all levels.
To achieve the impact you seek. You work your way. You inspire.
And you belong.
At the one firm. For you.
All right, so consulting is a career path that can offer many rewards and challenges, and here are some of the top perks to consider. One of the most attractive aspects of consulting is the opportunity to gain exposure to a variety of industries and businesses. This means that consultants get to work on a diverse range of projects, which can be very stimulating and intellectually challenging. Another perk of consulting is the chance to work with very talented professionals and experts. This can help consultants learn from the absolute best and grow their own skills and expertise. Additionally, consultants often enjoy a great deal of flexibility and autonomy in their work. I would have to say this also depends on what level of consulting that you're at. I think certainly as you climb the ladder, you gain much more flexibility and autonomy that's more accommodating to your personality style and your schedule. And this will allow you to kind of tailor your career. But at more junior levels, it's much more rigidly defined. Another advantage of consulting is the competitive compensation and benefits packages. And this can be particularly appealing for those who are looking to earn very high salary, and enjoy pretty good work-life balance. Of course, there is the location of many consulting firms, which tend to be in large metropolitan cities across the globe. In the US, popular consulting hubs include Chicago, Seattle, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and my most favorite, where Deloitte headquarters is actually based, is at the Rockefeller Center in New York City, where you might run into a Saturday Night Live performer just by going to work or getting lunch. So moving on to the last item on the list, this is perhaps the most important and my favorite aspect of consulting. It's that consultants have the chance to make a significantly meaningful impact on their client business and their projects. So this can be incredibly satisfying when a consultant is able to see the fruits of their labor and know that they've made a very clear difference in the world. And there's no shortage of opportunities within these firms. So now that we've seen the perks, we have to ask, what's the catch? And in consulting, although there are many benefits, there are also many challenges that come with the job. So one of the most significant challenges is the long hours and the high workload demands. And projects can be very complex and demanding, requiring a lot of time and effort to complete. And I have to admit, sometimes this can lead to burnout and exhaustion. Another challenge that consultants face is balancing multiple client projects and priorities. So it can be difficult to manage competing demands and ensure that all clients are satisfied with the work that's actually being done. Additionally, consultants need to stay up to date with industry trends and best practices. This requires a consultant to constantly self-educate and invest in professional development. And this can also be time-consuming and challenging. Another potential challenge of consulting, and another major challenge for consulting is that there is often an incredibly high level of pressure to deliver results and meet client expectations under very rigid, tight deadlines with very limited resources. Clients, we have to keep in mind, clients hire consultants to help them solve complex problems and achieve specific goals. And there's a lot riding on the success of these projects. So you're very invested and everybody wants you to succeed. But many times we're kind of coming up with the solution as we're figuring out the project, kind of building the plane as we are in flight, so to speak. So it can involve a lot of pressure. So consultants do need to be able to deliver quality work on time and on budget, in order to, one, maintain their reputation, as well as two, win new business for the firm. So I feel like I actually thrived in this space with all of these requirements. But the one challenge on this list that I took issue with, and I think that it ultimately is the reason why I left from consulting, it's that there's a need for travel and time spent away from home. So many consulting projects require that consultants be on site with their clients, and this can mean long periods of time spent away from family and friends. So it's something to consider, and I don't want to paint the picture that consulting is only full of all of the perks, and I think we get lost in that, all the perks and the greatness. There's certainly a sacrifice in this career path. But despite these challenges, consulting can be an incredibly rewarding career path. So with the right skills, mindset, and work ethic, consultants can overcome all of these obstacles and make a real impact on the business and industries that they serve. So all in all, I would say consulting is a very exciting and rewarding career path for those who are up for the challenge. The perks of the exposure to various industries, working with the most talented professionals, having flexibility and autonomy in your work style and schedule, the competitive compensation, and having the opportunity to make such a meaningful impact make this a very attractive career option. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, requirements gathering, it's an important topic related to consulting because it's much of what junior levels of consulting will actually be carrying out. So I wish I'd known more about this before I got into consulting and project management. And I think this is one of my more favorite analogies. So requirements gathering is a critical phase of consulting where the consultant works closely with the client to identify their business needs and requirements. This process typically involves a series of interviews, workshops, and other interactions with stakeholders to gather and document information about the client's current business processes, what are their pain points or their friction points, and what are the goals. So the purpose of requirements gathering is to establish a clear understanding of the client's needs and to define the scope of the consulting engagement. By gathering requirements, the consultant can identify areas where improvements can be made and develop recommendations and solutions that will address the client's needs. During the requirement gathering process, the consultant may use a variety of tools and techniques to gather and document information, such as surveys, questionnaires, process mapping, and stakeholder analysis. The consultant will also work closely with the client to ensure that the requirements are well-defined, specific, and measurable, and that they're aligned with the client's business goals and objectives. So requirements gathering, it's a critical component to consulting because it provides the foundation for developing effective recommendations and solutions that will help a client achieve their business objectives. And I can't think of many projects where they would not involve some level of requirements gathering. So to help illustrate the importance of this as a consultant, let's take a look at the tire swing analogy, where I'll explain each image on the slide from how the customer explained what they wanted. And I'll use an IT, we'll say this is an IT project. And we'll go through each of the images to the very end, which is what the customer actually needed. So in the first image, in the upper left-hand corner of the graphic, we see how the customer explained what they wanted, which appears to be some kind of step ladder that's tied to a tree. In the second image to the right, we see how the project manager understood how the customer explained it, which is now missing a few steps on the ladder, and it looks more like a tree swing. In the next image, we see how the analyst designed the product, which now distorts the tree and its branches. Next, we see how the programmers wrote the product, which no longer hangs from the tree, but is now wrapped around it. And then in the next image, we see how the business consultant described the product, which they described it as a nice lazy boy chair, which consultants are always promising their customers the world. We move on to the next image, first image on the second row, and we can see how the project was documented, where no one documented anything, which is often the case. Next, we see what the operations team actually installed, which is just one line of rope, and it doesn't really serve any purpose. In the next image, we see a roller coaster, which depicts what the customer was billed for, and this is something way over the top. And then we see how the product was supported, which is very limited and doesn't cover many product components at all, as you can see with just a tree stump. And the very last image on the graphic, this is what the customer actually needed, which turned out to be something that resembled a tire swing, something very simple that people can sit on and swing in. That's all they wanted. So you can see the requirements gathering, how confusing it can be, how quickly someone can get lost in this. And it's often the case where the customer doesn't exactly know what they want in the beginning. And it's part of the consultant's job to help them understand that. How do we get to an agreeable solution that'll fit the needs of your organization and the needs of the persons that you serve? So let's move on. As you consider a career in consulting, it's important to understand the different levels of consulting and the roles and responsibilities that come with each level. So we're going to break down these levels over the next 3 slides. Now, we begin with entry-level positions. Most bachelor, master, and sometimes doctoral level students will begin as either a business analyst or consultant, which you sometimes see listed as a junior consultant. At the most basic entry-level position, we have the business analyst. This consultant is responsible for analyzing data and gathering information to support the consulting team. They often work on specific project tasks, such as data collection, research and analysis. As a business analyst, you'll gain exposure to the consulting industry and learn valuable skills that will prepare you for a successful career in consulting. I would also add that this person is working on a lot of scheduling, spreadsheets, PowerPoint slides, and Word documents, and any busy work that the team needs done. Now, that might not sound exciting, but this role is generally designed to give the junior professional some exposure to a project within the firm, and then begin kind of learning the ropes so that they can prepare for more advanced responsibilities. The average salary for a business analyst is $60,000 to $80,000 per year. Moving up the ladder, we have the consultant. This level is responsible for providing analyses and recommendations to solve clients' business problems. Consultants typically work on client engagements where they develop project plans, conduct research, analyze data, and present their findings to the clients. As a consultant, you'll develop expertise in your chosen industry and build relationships with your clients. For me, it was in healthcare. I actually worked in healthcare, finance, and technology sectors. So you're not limited to one industry alone, but you can specialize in an industry like healthcare, but you can also specialize in other industries as you grow within your firm. So average salary for a consultant is $80,000 to $120,000 per year. Next, we have the senior consultant. This more experienced consultant is responsible for managing client relationships, developing project strategies, and overseeing project delivery. They work closely with clients to understand their needs and develop customized solutions to meet their business objectives. As a senior consultant, you'll have more autonomy and responsibility, as well as the opportunity to mentor and lead business analysts and junior consultants. Average salary for this position is about $100,000 to $150,000 per year. At the manager level, you'll find this is where you find your key consulting professionals, and they're responsible for leading the project team. They also develop business proposals and they manage budgets. They work closely with their senior leadership to develop overall business strategy and ensure that client engagements are successful. As a manager, you'll have a significant impact on the direction and success of the consulting practice. It's also at this level where you're expected to win consulting bids and bring in new business to the firm. The average salary for the manager is about $120,000 to $180,000 per year. And next we have the senior manager. This role typically involves managing multiple project teams and leading engagements for larger clients. Senior managers are responsible for developing and executing project plans, managing client relationships, and overseeing the work of managers. They also play a key role in business development by identifying and pursuing new opportunities for the consulting practice. In some consulting firms, the senior manager is considered a senior level position. In others, it might be considered a mid-level position. Average salary for this position, about $150,000 to $220,000 per year. And depending on how successful you are at bringing in new business, which is part of your overall value proposition as a consultant, this kind of formal performance evaluation in terms of being graded on how well you can manage client relationships and bring in new business, that'll determine if you continue to advance and reach the top levels of senior consulting leadership, which generally includes stock options. And it's split into two practice areas, and this includes the director or the principal. The director level is responsible for managing the consulting practice, building new client relationships, and continuing to develop their business portfolio. They do work very closely with senior leadership to set the overall direction for the practice and ensure that it stays on track to achieve its goals. As a director, you'll have significant influence on the consulting practice and the direction of the business, and you spend much of your time growing the firm's business. That was my experience working with the directors. Average salary for this position, about $180,000 to $250,000 per year. Finally, we have the principal, who is a partner level consultant, and they carry very deep industry knowledge and expertise. Principals are responsible for leading consulting engagements and developing new business opportunities. They're also highly respected experts in their field, and they play a critical role in the success of the consulting practice. Certainly, the principal gets to shape the direction of the business and help drive the overall growth and success of the firm. Average salary for principal, and pay attention, $250,000 to $400,000 per year, which is pretty awesome. So for those of you who are ambitious enough, I think it takes a career to get to this level. It's certainly not easily achieved, but goodness, I have several persons in my network who are principals, and it's just an amazing career and story that they can share. So with all that being said, where to begin? So once you've decided if consulting is the career for you, the next step is to determine how to get your foot in the door. So there are different ways to get into the world of consulting. You can just search any job search engine for consulting in your area, and I promise you'll see plenty of open positions across firms of all sizes and specialties, especially in Southern California. But the larger firms tend to center around large metropolitan areas like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego. Sometimes it's easier to get into the smaller firms first, get some experience, and then apply to higher ranked firms. I met plenty of people at Deloitte who did it this way. They started at very small firms, got their feet wet, kind of learned what consulting was about. They developed their technical skill set and understood what it was to create work plans and what project management involved. And then they were well received within these top performing firms. So another very common pathway to becoming a consultant is through your university and exploring relationships and opportunities they may already have with a consulting agency. Most likely you'll find this out during your internship application experience of what opportunities are available. Other universities may have consulting firms who work on campus, which is true for many universities. I know at Johns Hopkins, we had Deloitte and other firms who had full-time offices on our campus, and they're constantly putting on events to attract students into their training programs. And I met plenty of consultants when I was at Deloitte who joined us temporarily as graduate summer interns. I was always kind of a little bit jealous about that because I wish I'd had that experience. I thought that was such a cool way to get exposure to the world of consulting, is just during kind of that summer break in between your master's program. They get accepted into this program at a consulting firm. They work on a real live client project, and that's an amazing experience. And then they go back to their master's program. What's key about that experience is that you already have your foot in the door. You've made network. You've grown your network. And if you do well, you're very likely to get invited to come back full time once you finish your program. So it's an excellent way to get your foot in the door. Now, the best way to get your foot in the door is through networking, meaning if you know somebody who is already in a consulting firm, which is often the case, I think, with most jobs, is that it simply helps if you know somebody who's already in and can help you navigate the application process and really understand the company culture. And I subscribe to a very popular saying, which is network or not work. So you do have to put in that work, grow your network. You'll be very successful. So in many cases, current consultants are encouraged to invite prospective applicants into the firm. I know I had job offers later on. Once I got my feet wet and I had more experience in consulting, I was being invited to other consulting firms, and it's just the way we do business. So when you know that there's talent in your circle, you're the best advocate for your firm, so you know who's going to be a good fit, and you can invite them in. Generally, major consulting firms will host these kinds of orientation nights or just kind of overview nights to kind of paint the picture and give you an opportunity to meet with some other directors and principals and senior managers. So it's great if you can identify somebody in your network who works in a firm that you're interested in. And let's see here. So I will say for me, I knew the principal or one of the principals at Deloitte, and that's when I served in the military. So I reached out to him when I was about to finish my master's degree. And I had also just completed a management consulting training program with McKinsey. And I let him know, hey, I'm about to graduate. I did complete a management consulting program, and I'm interested in getting more into consulting. So he invited me in for a site visit where I was interviewed and I was offered the job. And it was one of the happiest days of my life. It was amazing. And it goes to show you how strong a network can be, because I'd met that person several years before I went back to school at Cal State Long Beach. And then I waited until I was ready to reach out when it made sense. So never underestimate the importance of the people that you'll meet when you're attending these kinds of student forums or events that are hosted by Cal State Long Beach. We do have a very strong alumni network, and they can do wonderful, amazing things for your career. So please don't underestimate that. Now, however you end up applying, you are likely going to have to complete something called the case study interview. And I'll briefly cover that on the next slide. Case study interview, I quickly just want to bring to everyone's attention that it's a unique interviewing process. It generally comes with an exam and a kind of business scenario that you'll be tested on. So you're given a prompt of, let's say, about 5 to 10 pages. It's a business problem for a fictional organization, and you spend about an hour studying the prompt, and you create you come up with your analysis and your recommendations, and then you present this in your interview about what you came up with. This was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever been in. I was sat in a very dim office. It was a large conference room, and I was given a manual. It was like 20 pages, and I was given 2 hours, study the book, and you're gonna, once you finish, you'll present your findings over the next hour. So it can be a little nerve-wracking. So that's why I want to prepare you for that. In consulting, if you do the case study interview, everyone has to go through it. So if you mention it to consultants, they'll know what you're talking about. It can be very stressful. There is a way to prepare for something like this. And actually, I put together some links for you, and I will post them in the chat. All right, so those are several helpful links for different consulting firms, how to prepare for the case study interview. Now, I will say consulting goes hand in hand with project management. And being certified as a project management professional, or PMP, it is a huge lift in helping you get the job and climb the consulting ladder. So I think I would ideally recommend that if you're seriously considering consulting, especially in healthcare consulting, it's best if you have a master's degree, something like a MPH, an MHA, an MBA. And if you can complement that with a PMP credential, you are an extremely solid candidate. As a matter of fact, on Columbia University's website for their School of Public Health, they will mention their ideal consultant, their ideal healthcare consultant is somebody who has a dual MBA and MPH and is skilled in project management. So that's some of the best advice I can give you on kind of helping you orient and prepare for a successful career in consulting. I know we're running a little bit short on time. I'm happy to share these slides with persons afterwards, but I included this video to provide an overview of the PMP. And here's our summary slide and our references. And now I can open up for an AMA, ask me anything, if that's okay. I know there are some questions that were previously put together, and just let me know.
So if you guys have any questions, you guys can unmute yourselves or type it in the chat. But there were some questions that were submitted. One of them was for students without much work experience prior to the internships. How can they gain a competitive edge? How can they diversify their resume? Any advice on that?
At the business analyst level and the junior consultant level, it's very important to show technical skills, but like general business office technical skills. So understanding the Microsoft suite, being really good at PowerPoint, being really good at writing documents, being really good at managing spreadsheets, kind of all those basic office administrative tasks, because every project is going to come with that. And we do depend on the business analysts, more the junior professionals, to help us with that, because we need the mid-level managers and the technical experts on the team. We need them with their heads down solving the problem. And so there's plenty of work for the business analysts, but the sharper you are, the more confident you are in managing those kinds of general business administrative tasks, I think the more successful you'll be, the more likely you are to be invited back onto more consulting projects. I would also say you can't underestimate how important it is to be a good presenter, to be able to articulate the information, because leadership depends on that. It's what did you find? What can we summarize what happened? Because I need to get this to the client as soon as possible. We're always under, how would you say, under the thumb of our client to get them the information that they need to move forward. So confidence in your speaking skills, being able to present information, and also being confident in your general kind of business administration proficiency, if that helps. Other than that, I would say a lot of this comes down to credentials, building your academic achievement, pursuing master's degrees. I wouldn't say a doctorate is required. I would say a master's degree is preferred, but I also worked with many bachelor's level business analysts and consultants. So don't rule yourself out.
How would you suggest that students, especially recent graduates, market themselves if they are interested in entering the field in consulting?
Goodness, start researching if you take an interest in a particular firm, go to their website and see if they're hosting any local events. And for the larger firms, they're constantly doing that. And it's really, I was impressed that when I was still junior to my firm, and I would go to these kinds of events, I was already working there, but I had direct access to directors and principals. And that's extended to these kind of public events for people who are not inside the firm yet, or maybe they've been invited by somebody who works in the firm. So if you can identify a local event for an organization for a consulting firm that's putting on kind of an outreach, those are like, don't underestimate that. Some of those persons, they're looking to hire immediately. So if you're the right fit and if it's the right time, you can land a spot there, but at the least you get more information, right? You can talk to them about what are different training programs that might be available. What do they recommend? If it's okay to keep their name for record and reach out with additional questions. But how to market yourself, it's just identifying where are they and how do I let them know my name? So if you can get them face to face, that's excellent. Otherwise, being in a like a master's program where I know consulting firms will put on those outreach events. Those work really well. Trying to identify how you can get into those summer training programs. Sometimes they're not through universities, and you can just apply to a training program directly through the firm, and you would know that by going to their website.
Another question that was submitted was that you have an extensive background in building client relationships with your experiences. This skill is necessary for all aspects of healthcare, and do you have any pointers or tips to help individuals who need to work on this?
Really quick on the previous question on marketing yourself, make your CV, your resume, it's a living document, and continue to polish it, continue to revise it. And you'll keep doing that over your career. So that's kind of sometimes that precedes us, or that's kind of is what's left with a decision maker. So just make sure that is like perfect or as good as it can be. Get other people to look at it too, get other eyes on it. But how to prepare for, if I understand the question, something like stakeholder management, how to manage client relations, business contacts at different levels. It comes with practice. And for me, I was, I think I saw Dr. Martinez here. I believe in her class that we went over the stakeholder management grid at some point. And that's a very important tool for any business professional. It's understanding, there's a very formal way to understand it. It's kind of a quadrant of how to manage stakeholder relations. And it's kind of like a power dynamic. All of this is simply to say, everyone has different personalities. So it's understanding how they receive information and what is the best way to present that information. So it's just getting comfortable with different personalities and how to concisely share your story. Something I'll add to that, at the junior level, it's very important to have that elevator pitch, right? So it's having that lockdown, that 30, 45-second spiel about this is who I am, this is what I bring to the table. And it lets people know, okay, you can articulate this in a very concise way. Let's have a conversation about what your interests are. So practice, practice, practice. We do have services at Cal State Long Beach to prep for interviews in terms of the elevator pitch, looking over resumes, things like that. Don't underestimate the class presentations as well. I remember taking HCA 300, and every single presentation I gave within this program, I treated it as a business presentation. So you come dressed appropriately as though these are real clients, because there's another saying where it's, we make the mistakes in training so that we don't make the actual mistakes out in the field. So as a student, it's okay to make the mistakes here, but you have to push yourself. So treat it as close to the actual situation as possible, as though you're speaking to real clients and getting comfortable kind of in your own skin as a business professional. This is how I present myself. This is how I present a message or data, recommendations, and so on. And with that, it's just really getting more comfortable with yourself and speaking on different topics.
Thank you. You know, we are 8 o'clock now, so we're out of time, but if anyone has any last questions, I'm gonna say speak now. And if not, we'd just like to extend a very warm thank you, Dr. Ramirez, for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have on the career field of consulting. And I know that many of us are leaving here with a better understanding of what consulting entails than we did when we first entered this Zoom. So thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for having me tonight. You could have spent this time being anywhere in the world, but you chose it to be with me. So have a very wonderful Friday evening and a wonderful weekend. Please feel free to reach out to me if you want to take a quick screenshot. And I believe my contact information was also shared previously. So don't hesitate to reach out to me now or in the future for any additional questions.